Good morning, CLC.
Good morning.
On Wednesday, April 2nd, after a heartfelt battle with illness, our beloved Melody Tempton, affectionately known by many of us as Mel T, transitioned beyond this world into higher consciousness. When Mel joined Creative Life, she almost immediately became a valued member of this family. She was always there to roll up her sleeves and help with pretty much anything and everything. From singing, dancing, decorating, cleaning, and her deviled eggs. Mel's memory will live in these halls forever. She was a whirlwind of energy and one of the M's in our beloved M&M production. When we were closed during COVID, Mel was here on this stage singing to an iPad in an empty room. Week after week, like many of us, she showed up and was here for you. Now she has moved on to a cosmic theater space where her magic continues to shine. When the time is right, we will celebrate her life with a never-to-be-forgotten musical event. Until then, please keep Mel T, her son Bo, her daughter Ren, their family, and her CLC family, along with all of her countless friends, close to your heart and in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you. Now, in this moment and at this time, I invite each and every one of you to just relax in quiet consciousness. Allow your body to relax and allow your mind to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself up to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one very special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in this room or even on this planet anymore. I turn to that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in this room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I'm grateful for the good in your lives.
First of all, let me have a look at you. You look marvelous, simply marvelous. Get the other eye done tomorrow. They're taking such good care of me. Well, this one actually. They're taking such good care of me, I'm going to have them work on my third eye next. Give it up for Jim Cantor. Last Sunday, phenomenal. Thank you so much. Was that the first Sunday talk you ever gave anywhere? No, it wasn't. Okay, it was the second. All right. Because we all looked at you and said, this man's done this before, even if once. No, that was phenomenal. Sweet Mel T. Yes, we will throw an event here, and I can't promise this because I'm not in charge of absolutely everything that happens on this planet. But if it's up to me, we'll have the time warp. Because if you knew her, she'd get 10, 15, 20 people, many of whom had never heard of Rocky Horror Picture Show or weren't of that generation or whatever, and in 20 minutes or so, you knew it. You knew the whole time warp dance and all the lyrics and all the moves and stuff. And the deviled eggs. The deviled eggs were huge, and she always put a special stash aside for me. at parties and events or random Sundays, you know, and it started out, she'd put 4 aside and then 6 and then 8. And eventually I'm like, I can't eat any more of these things. And I want to mention also, I have 2 more things to say before I get into the meat of the talk. I want to mention that someone passed recently. I saw the obituary in this morning's paper, and I want to call out his name to you and let you know, Dr. Bruce Smith. Dr. Bruce Smith was a dentist who 40 years ago co-founded the Bering Omega Dental Clinic, which was the only dental clinic in Houston, if not Texas, if not the South, that would treat men with HIV/AIDS. And it was part of the Bering family of medical, social service, psychological services, and so on that exists to this day. Incredible work that was done. And so we wish him Godspeed into his next experience, and you can look him up in the Chronicle in the obituary section. And then on a much lighter note, live long. You know this one, right? Live long and prosper.
Of course.
Okay. Do you know this one? This is U of H. This is Eat 'em Up Cougs. Okay. So Monday night, for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, the University of Houston Cougar basketball team will play for the national championship Monday night. So, are you a proud Coug?
Yeah, I have 2 children.
That's right, you certainly do, don't you? Graduates of, yes. Back in the day, they disparagingly called it Cougar High because it's a newer university and it wasn't, all ivy walls and this kind of thing, but it's a fantastic institution. And anyway, we're very proud of those kids and what their coach has had them do and what they've managed to accomplish, and will hopefully cap it off Monday night. Okay, so I'm listening to Jim, and this series in April, I'll be here for 2 of the 4 Sundays. Next Sunday, you get Danielle is going to speak, which is always incredible. I'll be back for Easter just because I'll be back for Easter. And then on the final Sunday of the month, Reverend Lisa is going to speak. It's not really a series. I mean, it has a title. It's about springtime awakening, springtime energies, and so on. But it's kind of on random pieces of spiritual psychology. And what I have for you today has to do with the idea of potential. In science, in physical science, potential is stored energy. When you hear that somebody has great potential, often it's suggested that they're not living up to it. They have great potential, but they haven't actualized the potential. When the potential's actualized, then it's rewarded. Potential is stored energy. Activity is expended energy. So you put energy into something and you have something to show for it. What you have to show for it is what we call in this teaching a manifestation or a demonstration. We demonstrate a certain outcome. And so much of our literature is about demonstrating and manifesting stuff. And it will tell you, because it's a hook and it interests people. If you say to people, you are a mystical being who has a connection to the stars and the universe, everybody's like, that's great. How can I monetize that? How can I turn that into something useful and practical? So much of our New Thought literature has a hook of usefulness and practicality. You can have more money than you do. You can have more fame, and you can have more friends, and you can have more power, more clout in your life than you do right now. And people shopping for self-help material look at that and they seize onto that and say, that's for me. I want that. I want more of that. And there's nothing wrong with that, and we spend a considerable amount of time here teaching people how to manifest certain things. But what I'm here to tell you is there's a whole dimension beyond that, where all the unmanifested stuff exists. The unmanifest essence of reality. In our Declaration of Principles, which is the document called What We Believe, you may have seen this. It's on our Facebook page. It's on our website. It's a lot of different places. And there's a passage in there that says that this one life that we believe in is manifest throughout all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. It's not absorbed by its creation. People often wonder, well, what does that mean? It's not absorbed. It's not used. It means what it says it means. It's not used up. It's not expended. By being fully present at every point within itself, there's still more to it. So behind everything that's manifested is all the unmanifested stuff that's waiting to manifest, or it's okay with itself being unmanifest. We make the determination that the most important thing that happens is what the senses can register. We make the determination that Earth is where it's all happening, and if there's life on other planets, it's amoebas or something crawling around. It really doesn't matter. This is where Jesus came. This is where Buddha showed up. This is where all the great ones have been who've arisen out of the human family, just to promote what humankind's doing on this earth, because this is the most important place ever. And that's real exclusionary, and that's what people do, because they like to think that wherever they are is where everybody ought to be. Where they are is where it's most important, where the ancestors would have put them, where the story is really active and meaningful. And the fact of the matter is, Spirit is fully present at every point within creation, and most of those points within creation you and I are never going to visit. We don't know what's going on out there. But it's seeking entry into human experience through us. Something is knocking on the door of consciousness. Do we admit it? We find out what it is and what it wants from us. And it always wants something from us if we're the door that it's knocking on. Yet behind it is something greater. So when Jesus said, and we're talking some about Jesus this month because, well, we're leading up to Easter. We're in Lent, you know. When Jesus said, these things that I do, you shall do. Greater things than these shall you do. These things that I do, you shall do also, and greater things than these shall you do. This is the most quoted line of Jesus in all of New Thought. Why? Because it's about you. It's about me. It's not about, discipline and sacrifice and kind of those topics that make us a little bit uncomfortable. It's about power. It's about agency. Well, these things that I do, you shall do also, and greater things than these. What he's meaning is that we're drawing from a limitless field of potential that no matter how frequently you tap it, remains undiminished. SIg Paulson, Dr. SIg Paulson, was with the late Dr. SIg Paulson, with his late wife, Dr. Janie Paulson. They were co-ministers at the Unity Church downtown, where Dr. Michael Gott presently serves. And back in the day, I went to a service there one Sunday, and in the pyramid, and Sig got up and he told this little story. And I don't remember a lot of the story. I didn't make notes, and I didn't know at that time that I'd be using his story years later for you, But the gist of the thing, he went somewhere. Could have been Africa, could have been South America. It was somewhere to him kind of exotic where he went. And he said in this hotel where he stayed, out the window of the hotel, it overlooked something like tar pits, where this black lava-like, asphalty kind of stuff, liquid stuff, came gurgling up out of the ground and formed these great pools. And he looked out the window seeing this, and he said, line of trucks drove up, and they siphoned this gunk out of these pools in great hoses, into the beds of these container trucks, one after the next, and off they went. And next morning he looked out, and the thing was level again. A line of trucks, and it could not exhaust this thing. And to this day, this is 40-something years ago, he said, to this day, I'm sure wherever this place was, it's still useful to anybody, to industry, to pump this stuff out of the ground. It's still happening, and it's inexhaustible. So he made the point. Now, are they ever going to run out of this stuff? Who knows, right? I mean, it is finite. It is contained somehow. But he made the point, in consciousness, there's a place you can go There's a place you can back your truck up. There's a place you can back your truck up and load up, and it'll never run out. And you can go there again and again and again, and so can your neighbor. And so can every one of us, and so can all the generations unborn, can go to this place in consciousness and do greater things. Now, I think when Jesus said, greater things than I do, you shall do also, he didn't necessarily mean greater in quantity or even greater in shock value. He meant there'll be different needs in future times. He could not have envisioned, well, he probably could have, being Jesus and all, but he could, let's just say, for the sake of argument, he couldn't have envisioned life today. And all of the opportunities that we have and all of the challenges that we have, and how we're recognizing how we're one human family and we're dealing with that in fits and starts and so on. The fact that we set a thing down, how on earth they set a rover thing down on Mars and guide it from here, and the thing goes around scooping up rocks and spying out the landscape. Well, greater things than these shall we do, because greater needs impress themselves upon us, and we draw from the same source, which is why Ernest Holmes and other New Thought writers talk about first cause. First cause isn't just the Big Bang that happened a long time ago. It's just this thing that's a mysterious thing that's lost in time. First cause is what you and I use every time we cause anything. Every apparent subsequent cause is a derivation of first cause. That is to say, it has the same degree of intensity to it that first cause did, that formed solar systems and spun worlds out and peopled them with living things. First cause is what you use every time you think, and every time you feel, and especially every time you think and feel in the same direction. Unite the two as thought and feeling into that thing we call belief, and it is belief that moves the mountains. It is belief that transforms things. We're using first cause. We're using the only power there is. One of my favorite Ernest Holmes quotes comes from somewhere in the practitioner training material, where he says, I know I've told you this before, but one or two of you might not have heard it, and you should. So he says, the mind you use is the same mind that made a star. The mind you use, maybe I have that backward, the mind that made a star is the same mind that you use. Why I love that statement is because it is declarative and forthright and active rather than passive. Passive would be, no less true, but still passive, would be the mind that made a star is the mind that made you. We can all agree that sounds right, that feels right, and it made him and her and them and this and that, and it's just churning stuff out. That's great, but it doesn't put you in the picture as a co-creator the way it does when you say the mind that made a star is the same mind that you use, and the same mind that you're using right now, thinking about whatever it is you're thinking about, and empowering it in however you're empowering it, and getting excited about it, or getting annoyed about it, or getting fearful about it, or getting hopeful about it. You and I are using the same power. And sometimes the power, as we use it, is simply about exploration and self-awareness rather than a big dramatic production and presentation of some new reality. For example, when you look at a problematic area in your life, you probably have a plan. You have a strategy of what to do about the problematic area. You have an idea if it involves another person, which very often our problems do. We have it isolated that there's another person to blame, and if only they'd change or get out of the picture altogether, the problem would go away, right? And so we work on that, directly or indirectly. We have this, or if it's not a person, then it's, the weather or something that we put in the way that it's problematic kind of thing, that if only this were different. Failing to notice that if only we were different, If only we had a different take on the situation would be free to be different from what it appears to be. One healing solution to any situation is to just feel differently about it. I remember one time I went to the dentist to have my, they took out all 4 wisdom teeth in one sitting. Kind of interesting. And yeah. And most of you know I'm a person in recovery, so I don't stoke myself up on mind-altering substance. You're my mind-altering substance. You guys, this, okay? So they said, well, we want to give you some stuff, and I said, well, how about nitrous oxide? I said, we're going to give you some nitrous, and of course a lot of Novocaine and immediate topical stuff, but they gave me nitrous oxide, and I said, I've never had this. What is it like? And the dentist said, well, it's going to be like several beers. And I said, well, it's been a very long time since I've had several beers, but is this? No, it's not addictive. It's not habit forming. You really want this. So, okay. I said, why not? And they gave me the nitrous oxide. And as they were administering it, they said something very interesting to me. I said, now this is not a painkiller. What this will do for you, I just love this. What this will do for you, it will still feel how it feels, but you won't care. It'll feel how it feels, but you won't care. And I'm like, well, how does that work? And I already had some exposure to metaphysics when this was going on. In fact, I was already doing this, but it occurred to me, couldn't you say that really about a lot of things? If you don't give it the power that you have, then what power does it have? Now, I know this sounds a little too easy, and a little slathered across every experience, but give it a chance. Give it a chance. As they say, mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. And so I had the nitrous oxide, and it was lovely. And I subsequently had it with, future dental experiences and stuff, because it was just great. And they also, by the way, when I was having some extensive dental work done later on, they said, do you want to watch TV? And I said, well, I can't really see the TV well from here, because that was another issue. So they said, well, do you want to listen to some music? So they put Vivaldi's Four Seasons on. They gave me a little CD player, sat on my chest, and put on Vivaldi's Four Seasons. And to this day, when I hear the Four Seasons, I drool. So if you don't give it your power, what power does it have? Is a good thing to consider. There is something back of everything, and it has a life of its own. And yeah, it wants better conditions for you. It wants who is it? Hafiz says, "I'm tired of seeing you live in these conditions. I want something better for you." This is what Allah says to his children. I want you to do something better, but at the same time, this power back of everything has its own agenda, has its own reality that's not about you and not about me and not about conditions. This is why when Emerson, for example, said the infinite, the finite alone has wrought and suffered, has worked and suffered. The infinite lies stretched in smiling repose back of everything else. It thinks everything is just fine. Because it is. I don't mean it is just fine. I mean it is. Literally, it is, period. It just is. It is the great I am. The great I am is being the great I am unfolding. I may not like aspects of it. You may not like aspects of it, and that's not wrong at all of us to feel that way. And the way that we rectify those situations that we find awful has ultimately got to be that we go to the place that doesn't recognize anything like awfulness. It only knows I am. And that's where we get That's where we get our power. And I know I've joked about this before, but like Jesus, it's not something to joke about, but it still strikes me as kind of funny, where Jesus with Lazarus, when they came, it's 3 days it took him to get there, you know. They come to see your cousin, he's passed away. We need your help. What can you do about this? You know, if he had said, what? He's passed away. What do you want from me, for crying out? What do you think I am, a miracle worker? Yeah, he was, as a matter of fact. And he goes and he says, come out. He says these words in the stories as we have recounted in the gospel tradition. And the story is that Lazarus arose and he awakened and came out and all was well. You know, if Jesus presented with the conditions that he was, where people brought their sick and dying out into the street for him to minister to them, if he had stood there and said, God, this is overwhelming. What is wrong with you people? You're all so sick in this town, and you know, and I feel terrible about it, and oh my God. Well, he wouldn't have been touching base with his source of power, would he? No, he'd have been coming at it from a place of personality, wouldn't he? Well, what do, you and I? Well, we come at it from a place of personality first. And I'll wrap it up with that today, where when you hear treat about it, pray about the situation, sometimes people think, well, where is the room in there for human sympathy and human kindness? I'll tell you where I think it is. Human kindness comes first. First thing you do when you hear of something, it draws a tear to your eye, it draws a lump to your throat, it makes your pulse race faster when you hear of trouble, when you hear of loss, you hear of suffering in some way. Your human response, our human response, we're not made of wood. Our human response is, oh my God, that's awful. And then our second thought is there is a power greater than I am, right where I am, right where this situation is, and it's doing what needs to be done. Now maybe you put it in the other order. And I've seen folks do this, where they hear something awful and they put all their feelings aside first and they go right into there's a power in there. But sometime you got to touch base with those feelings so you circle back to them. Now, I prayed about this and spoken my word about this, and then later you kind of fall apart over it because it strikes a nerve in you. Both of these are perfectly balanced and perfectly wonderfully good. And so when you read about somebody like Jesus, about whom we have very little information, as you know, we've talked about this, all the red ink in the Bible is less than 3.5 hours. Everything that he had to say that's recorded anywhere is less than 3.5 hours. So a whole lot went on. Now you bring in the Nag Hammadi material, you'll get some more, but not a lot, maybe another hour and a half, you know. And the only record that we have that I can recall is when he's in the garden and it says Jesus wept, which is also, by the way, the shortest passage in the Bible, shortest verse in the Bible, 2 words, Jesus wept. Jesus wept, why? He wept because the disciples fell asleep when he asked them to keep watch, you know. But for most of the time, he's just speaking the word, and he's just, I and my Father are one, and he's coming at. And so we look at this and we say, how can I follow a model like that? Because he didn't seem, I don't read about his angst. You know, I don't read about his internal processing and his questioning. Why is this so? That's just because nobody wrote it down. It wasn't clickbait. You know, it wasn't the kind of thing. If you have a spiritual leader who's self-questioning and self-evaluating and stuff, it's like you want to get past those pages to where they're heroic again. And they're walking across that water and they're changing it into wine and doing all the big dramatic stuff. But you and I, we're real people, and we got more than 3.5 hours of red ink behind us. I mean, we got our whole lives are recognizable to us now in memory and in the consciousness of the people around us, and so we go through the full spectrum of human emotion. And nothing about this teaching is to suggest otherwise. And what it is to present is the back of it all is a place we can go where nothing has ever been wrong. Nothing has ever been wrong. And it just takes you in and it says, you are my beloved child in whom I am well pleased. You are my beloved child. Better than that even, because it's not separate from us where it's like pleased or displeased. You are my beloved child in whom I am well represented. Well represented. Fully flourishing as the life that you are. Let's know together, one life, one power, one presence, one inexhaustible source of everything that passes through our awareness in this creation. And always there is so much more. And we stand, as our friend Jim taught us, we stand in wonder, we stand in awe, in astonishment, jaw-dropping astonishment at the complexity, at the beauty of creation. All around us, trees are blooming and springtime is in full throttle and the wildflowers are up. And they're doing what they do for a practical reason. They attract insects that pollinate and everything we learned in school, but they're also doing it just for the sheer exuberance of being who and what they are. So you and I, with nothing added, with nothing taken away, can exuberate fully as who we are. There's not a future time that will be more conducive to this than today. Nothing else has to happen, though it will, of course, happen. We are enough right now just as we are. And as we grow in awareness of that truth, our desires change, our hungers, our passions. We understand our motivations, our intentions, our ambitions, and we have peace at the center of our souls, which radiates outward then into our world, like a tuning fork might, where now all of life is free to resonate to that peaceful knowing, that Christ consciousness that has appeared for this knowing and its manifestation in form. Everywhere we turn, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
Can you hear me? That's very funny, actually. Hey, listen, online, before there's any comments, yes, I am wearing a down jacket. I am in a building. It is true. Why? Because I'm feeling down to earth. Last time I wore this, there were comments coming online which were saying, is he really wearing a down jacket? Well, the answer was yes.
It's also 50 degrees out there.
It is, yeah. And sometimes in the building here it's 50 degrees, but that's another story. Let me see. Yeah, there's actually a whole bunch of classes coming up. But before that, I want to go back to some stuff that Reverend Jesse was talking about. And he was saying to go to the place where nothing has ever been wrong. And the way we do that is through spiritual mind treatment. And Reverend Jesse there is encouraging us all to, if you know how to use spiritual mind treatment, then to do that when something happens. And also, if you don't, then we do have classes that will teach you how to do spiritual mind treatment. And also we have licensed practitioners and ministers who can actually hold that space for you. And if you want to know how to contact one, there's a couple of ways to do it. If in the weekly email, if you scroll down, you'll see where you can click on who the licensed practitioners are. And if you go to our website and you go under spiritual support and you scroll down, you can also get a list of the practitioners there. So please, I was talking to somebody this morning before the service started and saying, if you need prayer help, reach out to us. I mean, seriously, that is why we're here. That is why we train these practitioners, because they're here to support you. And they're here in the room now, and we have one every Sunday online and in the room to help you. But also at other times, we can also help you. And we do have a prayer team that actually will hold that space for you. So please reach out to us. Seriously, that's why we're here. So as we come up to giving time, once again, we really appreciate your support because it helps to keep our center open and going. And centers like us throughout the world are holding the space for a much better, healthier, more livable planet. So you're actually helping to make the world a better place. So please say with me now, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
So, which just for the fun of it, I'm also going to do the Science of Mind. I'm going to start reading the Science of Mind in the morning. So they may be way ahead of me though. So I'm going to start. I got about a week left in the Voice Celestial. It's taken me 5 days to get through. I've got one more day to get through chapter 13 because it's on Jesus. And anybody have any idea how much Ernest loved Jesus? Yeah. I mean, not at all. So, yeah. It's been very interesting. If you haven't read The Voice Celestial, I commend it to you. Especially, well, book 1 is the journey. And book 2 is where they kind of go through, hey, these are all the things that we read that kind of inspired us. And so one of the things that I did when he would mention things, I would go and put links on my daily talk. And I'm also moving them to the YouTube channel. So I was like, oh, well, if we're going to talk about this, let me go get you a YouTube link. So if you would like to take a deeper dive in some of the stuff that they clearly did read, I'm providing that for you. I did not mean to do a commercial for the Voice Celestial, but it's been really good. I've already told Jesse he's not getting his book back. I'm keeping it. So, all right. I think that is it. But I was going to give you a quick example because every now and again they come to mind. For people who do regular spiritual practice, whatever their regular spiritual practice is, and there's lots of different ones, treatment is just one of them. When you do that regular spiritual practice, then when you are in the midst of an event, you can go to that place first. The people who can go to that place first and then respond with their human emotions are people who do regular spiritual practice, which is part of the reason why we encourage you to do it. We encourage you to treat when things are good so that you create that well-worn path so that when something happens, your feet know that path. You can walk that path blindfolded. So if I trip on my way down, I'm not going to, then what I hope that you do for me is know that everything's going to be okay. And then when I land on the floor, you come over and pick me up. That's my example. Maybe not as good as my tree example, but, in the moment, regular spiritual practice will get your feet on that path faster than anything else. Because the best thing I ever saw was when I was running a 5K in gravel, and one of the runners went down. And immediately there was the human response of, hey, let's stop and help this person. But there was that one person who started to pray. And I was like, that's it. So you're getting both. All right. Clearly that was a core memory there. My final responsibility is that spiritual practice to treat, to send you out into this beautiful spring day with a knowing that it's all going to be okay. So consciously enter into the sacred with me. It's all sacred all the time. But when we make that conscious connection of oneness, we open the tap of that flow so much wider. It's flowing all the time. But when we consciously do it, we're taking our foot off the hose. And know with me, there is one life, one power, one presence, one love. And I am a manifestation of that presence. I am a channel for that power. I am a channel for that love. Just as each and every one of you are. And so I know as we walk through this week that we do so in the knowing that we are connected to something infinite, something so much bigger than we are, that it can catch each and every one of us as we fall and hold us in those loving arms as we get our feet back underneath ourselves. And do so lovingly, willingly, givingly. And that we get to give that gift to each other. We get to look in each other's eyes and see that Christ looking back at us. To see that love shining in each other's eyes. And to hold the knowing that we are each beloved expressions of that. Thou art that. And to know it on a level that goes beyond instinct and into our DNA. Into that infinite level. And I rest in those arms, knowing that that which I am seeking is seeking me. That which you are seeking is seeking you. And the crooked places are made straight, and the path is smooth. And I relax into this knowing in gratitude. I am grateful for a teaching that teaches me who I am. I am grateful for a community that comes together to remind each other who we are. I am grateful for our practitioners, our ministers, our musicians, each other, and the technology that allows us to share this across the world. And I am grateful because it's just another word for love. And I release my word with love into that law, calling it done, and so it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it. I trust it. I use it. And I love it. So it is.
And so it